Hey everybody, Onepeg here. I wanted to make a video that had to do with the weight system. And while I realize that Little Things tends to focus on a bunch of little topics and nuanceical details that are about Tarkov, with the weight system in this case being as new as it is, and with it changing ever rapidly, I wanted to at least touch on the subject of weight and give you guys all of the little details should you want them. Now, obviously, I tend to be a much more generalistic type of person when it comes to researching this, so it's not going to be the most encompassing thing in the world, but it will give you a little bit more of a generalization or overview than just saying more weight equals slow down. You know what I mean? Now, just as a little side note, today that I am recording this, the day is March 14th, which means that the patch has been out for about 3 days, and the weight system has been changing on a daily basis. So it's very possible that by the time that you hear my voice or see this video, they've already changed this again. So while the figures themselves may be off by a few kilograms or something like that, the core of the information should still be sound. I don't see them changing any of the major mechanics. More so, they're probably just going to change the point in your weight that these mechanics start kicking in. I broke this video up into what happens as your weight goes up. So basically, we're just going to look at low weight to overweight. And for those of you that don't want to stick around for the entire thing, here's your TLDR. At 45 kilograms, you start slowing down and your jump height starts to diminish. At 50 kilograms, you lose stamina when you walk. At 75 kilograms currently, you can't sprint. You need to be at 90% or more weight to gain strength when you walk. As of now, that is 67.5 kilograms. But this now also drains stamina, so it's very likely this will be slower to level over time. Okay, now for the rest of it and additional findings, and there's a lot here, I'll go on with the detailed stuff from this point on, including some possible little bugs that I have found in all of my testing. So there aren't any penalties to your movement or any of your stats or anything like that until you get to 45 kilograms. Anything below this is considered green weight, so we probably won't focus on that part. And just so that you guys are aware, my endurance is only, I think, level 1.5 or so, and my strength is still 0 because it is pretty difficult and slow to get your strength up. After 45 kilograms, we have yellow weight, and then what I refer to as heavy yellow weight, which begins at 50. At 50 kilograms, the penalty to jumping is to a point where you can no longer clear high walls and hurdles that you could usually clear by jumping if you were under 50. Your stamina is reduced when you move, and you can only regain stamina by standing still. In the case of red weight, you can only regain stamina by either crouching or going prone. Just standing still isn't enough to regenerate the stamina that you're trying to get back. Also, in all cases, regardless of weight, crouch walking now in this game costs stamina as well. If you're moving slowly, it costs less, and if you're moving more quickly, it costs more. Now, I personally am of the opinion that it should be opposite of this because I think there's more muscle strain when you're moving slowly and quietly, but I can see the logic behind why BSG is doing it this way. And as always with your weight, when it increases as it climbs up through the weight thresholds, it costs more stamina to move even when you're crouched. Also, as one other little case in point, when you are in the red weight zone and are prone, you have to stay still. All of the other scenarios, if you go to move while prone, it doesn't expend stamina, but in the red zone, it will. Once you get to 60 kilograms, low walls are also no longer traversable. So keep that in mind with your jumping or lack of jumping ability. Obviously, this is going to be augmented by strength because part of what strength does is improve your jump height. So it will be offset a little bit. But for now, for all of us newbies at 0 strength, just be aware that you need to plan for jumping over certain barricades. Also, it stands to note that in this case, the heavier you are, the more stamina it costs to actually leave your feet and try to jump in the first place. In addition to this, whenever you go prone and go to stand back up, regardless of whether or not you have any actual heavy weight to you whatsoever, there is an arms and legs stamina penalty to standing back up on your feet. As your weight goes up, the penalty to do that is increased. This ranges from some 15 or so percent at being underweight to when you are heavy, having it cost maybe 25 to 30% of your overall stamina. Now, the next major thing that we want to look at here is running. So in this very simple section of Factory, I developed a track. And in another video, I'm going to go into how it is that you can extremely accurately gauge distance. But in this hallway, from these bullet holes that I've put on the floor to the opposite wall of the hallway, it is 40 meters. Give or take about a tenth. Yeah, so you see these bullet holes in the floor? Here's something interesting that I found. We all know that bullets in the game have weight, right? I mean, how many shotgun shell runners have we seen even just since the patch went live? You know what I mean? But one interesting mechanic, and this might even be a bug, is something that I discovered while I was testing this. So this TX-15 that I'm carrying is full of rounds. It's got a 60-round mag in it. But if you notice, as I fire off these rounds, I'm not actually losing weight on my character. In fact, I'm not losing any weight at all. And even if I empty the mag, I haven't lost even a tenth of a kilogram. This is because Tarkov doesn't calculate the active weight of your character until after you reload. So all of the rounds that you're spending in firing at your opponent isn't actually reducing your weight until you hit the R key. Now, changing weapons also will not modify what the current weight is like. Checking your mag isn't going to adjust the weight of your character until you actually pull the mag out, put it in your rig, and then swap into a new one. I have no idea if this is a bug or not, but hopefully this is something that BSG might be able to remedy and we could get some real-time updating rather than something that takes us a few seconds after we're done firing to adjust. But for now, reloading out a partial mag might actually be the difference between your ability to clear a barricade or not, just as some food for thought. And like any other track runner, put your toe on the line, and when the run starts, we time it to see how long it takes to get to the other end. Now, there isn't a ton of difference in the amount of time that it takes to reach the other end. In this case, for this 40-meter sprint, we have at sub 45 kilograms a time of about 6.36 seconds. At 60 kilograms, the time is about 6.47 seconds. And at 74.9 kilograms, which is just before we're not able to sprint at all, it takes just north of 7 seconds. Now, the major difference here is that at the 6.3 seconds worth of running, again with only level 2 or so endurance, I have about 75% of my bar left. In the case of 60 kilograms, I only have about 60% of my bar left. And in the case of the 74.9 kilogram sprinting, I have less than 50%. So there is a significant difference in the amount of stamina that you have over these different distances. And obviously there's something to be said about your ability to run for twice as long as the guy that is overweight. Next, we have weapon sway. So when turning abruptly, if you're underweight, it doesn't seem like there's very much barrel drift in this case. And what I did is just kind of made a 90-degree quick turn with the laser kind of showing a visual representation of what's going on when you stop turning. Now, I didn't use any kind of program or macroed key input of any kind to make me turn so that it was exact. But again, just eyeballing this, the idea here is you can clearly see that the difference between being underweight or under that weight threshold and then working up into heavier weight and eventually getting into the red, the barrel drifting here is much, much more pronounced when you're heavy. Basically, the main idea here is the heavier you are, the more you have to work on trying to set up your shots before your engagements. And flick aiming on people is going to be a lot harder when you're heavy. 50 kilograms strapped onto your back and you try to make an abrupt turn like a flick shot, it's not going to stop on a dime. You're going to have some momentum on your back as you spin, and it's going to carry that barrel. So that's what I got, guys. So what's the point of the weight system? And maybe we can think on this for just a second. Now, obviously, there's the argument that we want the game to be as realistic as we can possibly get while still having it be a game. And I think that something like this weight restrictiveness system is something that is absolutely necessary. Just about every RPG that tries to simulate any kind of realism whatsoever has some kind of weight limitation mechanic. But Tarkov is a little bit unique. The whole point of Tarkov is for the raids that you survive, you're trying to maximize on the amount of loot that you can get off of those raids that you're surviving. No one wants to just simply survive. It's a matter of surviving while at the same time being as lucrative as possible. So in a lot of ways, and really at its core, what this weight system does is put a limitation on how successful those successful raids can be. That then leads to the need for people to have to be more consistent with how often they survive. And that boils down to a much higher survivability rate. When the majority of the player base has a survival rate that is sub 50%, two things happen. One, either they end up very, very broke, or two, they end up running very, very light kits, in some cases just a naked pistol, and hope that they can get enough loot to stuff into their secure container so that they can buy something better for the next run. For some of us, doing the rags to riches thing is a nice change of pace. For other people, it ends up being something much more along the lines of necessity. And when you start putting a reliance on the need to survive with some type of profitability even more regularly than you already are, because now you have a limitation on how much you can earn, in a manner of speaking, from raid to raid, it then starts to beg the question, is this really right? For the hardcores, people like myself and the people that have thousands of hours, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Sure, it's a little bit more frustrating. Sure, it's going to slow us down a little bit, but it's not really going to ruin the game for us. Where it starts to become a center of further frustration and maybe people wanting to quit are the people that don't play as consistently and aren't able to put in thousands of hours yet. I think that the way that Tarkov is structured is once you've learned what it is that needs to be learned at its core, you have the ability to make money whenever you want. And it's been quoted time and again for the people that have a lot of experience, it's not hard to make money in this game unless you're new. In that case, it's very, very hard to make money in this game because you just don't know what you don't know. So I'm going to continue making content like this, hopefully educating folks, hopefully showing people ways that they can succeed at this game in little bits and pieces. And so will many other creators out there. And hopefully, and I have faith in BSG making some changes for the betterment of the more common player base. And hopefully we'll all be a little bit happier as time goes on. Thanks again, guys, for all of the love and support. And I'll see you in the next one. All right? Thanks.